What to expect in CAT 2021? It's a grand title. What to expect? First of all, I'm going to get all the caveats out of the way. We're not definitively predicting any one thing. Nobody can. This is based on whatever we have seen in CAT and whatever nuggets we can pick from the way they are thinking. There is some pattern to what they've been doing in the last 4 or 5 years. We've looked at all the data. We're therefore saying, hey, it's likely to be in this ballpark. Keep in mind that this is indicative. We're giving you a picture of what it could be and not saying anything as to what it will be. Nobody knows that. Definitely not us. And this is definitely not based on the idea or the preconceived notion that IMA is conducting it. We have no clue. So this is not definitive. Keep that in mind. I wanted to get all the caveats out of the way. What have we done? We basically said, let's look at CAT over the last few years, see what they have done in each section, and then take away something that we are very sure of, then build on it and say how we should finally leave it with what should our preparation be, what should we think about that. Right? So I want to start with VRC. To start with, we've looked at both the 3R and the 2R mocks. Through the years, the pattern for the 3R mocks have been steady, 2R mock has been steady. RC is the elephant in the room. Give or take 2/3 or 3/4 of the questions come from there. So close to about 70% come from RC. Right now we have the 2R mock in mind. You can of course see this. So I'm not going to go through this in detail. Otherwise this will become a 1-hour video. And so I'm going to keep focus on just a specific thing. All the data that we have on this video is available on a blog. So you can see all the charts, all the tables. So you can see and look at all the data on your own. It will be handed on a platter like we usually do. I'm going to focus on the highlights, not go line by line. That's boring. Right? So 26 questions in verbal, that's what was last year, 18 are RC. That is the elephant in the room. Apart from that, there are 3 question types, roughly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, with these sentence elimination thing being treated separately. And so this is what we can expect, especially because it has been consistent for 4 years. The 3R to 2R is they've just shrunk it to 2/3, nothing more than that. Right? Now, where have the questions come from? Right? Where are the passages come from? This is super important. This is wonderfully, there's something to be taken from here. Technology, industry and science, that's a big chunk. Human culture is a big chunk. Economy and business, fiction and others is smaller. This is big. Psychology and philosophy is big. And so I'm not saying you should prepare for this. Nobody can say, okay, let me prepare for human culture passages or fiction and others passages. You can't. But you must have a sense of, hey, what works for me? That is very important. I'm not saying go to the passage and then just scan everything and say, okay, economy, I'm nailing that. Human culture, I'm nailing that. You can't possibly do that. But over the course of your preparation, you should have a certain familiarity with, for myself, I really like technology, industry and science. Numbers, I know the jargon. I'm comfortable with science. I'm very comfortable with the technology terms. I love this economy and business because I feel like not only am I comfortable with it, I might have a competitive advantage. Sometimes if the terminology is too tough, the questions are easy. The terminology I'm comfortable with because I was writing those pieces. I was a research writer for several years. So I like that. What do I not like? Philosophy is not my cup of tea. When psychology I can flirt with, philosophy not so much. So we should have a certain idea of what works for me, what doesn't work for me. Right? And if you want to have practice over this, look no further than Bharat's list. Bharat's reading list is kind of categorized on very similar basis. So you'll get an exact sense of what is meant when you say human culture or fiction and others or technology, industry and science. Go through that reading list, being categorized like that. So you know what to look for. I'm not saying you should prepare for each of these. I'm just saying you should have a sense of, hey, this works for me, this not so much. That is important. Okay. Let's go to DILR. And this is fabulous. This is a part which I looked at this table and data over and over again, and then I mapped it to what I had seen in the papers. I've written the CAT for the last several years. And so tables and scheduling and arrangement, graphs and charts, grids, Venn diagrams and miscellaneous. And I said, look, what do I look for? Which are the ones I am comfortable in? And how should we prepare for it? How should we plan for it? Now, nothing jumped out. And nothing really popped out in automatic fashion for me. I have a natural comfort level with Venn diagram, but a couple of Venn diagram questions were very tricky. They proved to me my undoing because I chased it and I'm not comfortable with it. If you look at deeper into miscellaneous, I was looking for one particular thing, math puzzles. This is the one I like. When dealing with factors, prime numbers, ratio and percentages, dealing with that I like. Once again, very similar to verbal. You cannot say, especially with I know whoever has put together this data, they have tried to map it with reasonable kind of focus and sticking to the script. But I can tell you, several puzzles do not automatically categorize and slot themselves into this. They don't. What do I like? I like this graphs and charts bit. What was traditionally DI? Usually there's at least one set where you have to multiply, divide, find growth rate, find revenue share, compare 4 things, find the third highest, fourth lowest, that kind of thing. I like it. I love it because I have a big history, long years of practice of having taken CAT without calculators. So somebody asked me to calculate 23.5% of something. I'm like, look, I'm doing this. So I'm comfortable with that the numerical number-based one. So I like those. I like Venn diagram. I like mathematical puzzles. I know that. I don't like some types of tables and some types of grids, especially if the constraints are too many. Once again, you don't need to say, I'm going after all of this. You should know that this type kind of works for me. You should know that this type does not work for me. So the idea, the ballpark idea of what works for you, what does not work is important, but do not have hard and fast rules. It doesn't help. For VRC with topic styles and for LRDI with puzzle sets, don't say anything in scheduling, anything in grids I'm doing. You might not find a single question. And very often, we don't even know what will get slotted here, what will get slotted here. If you ask me, is this puzzle going to be grid or scheduling? I'll say, yeah, put it in one of the two. It really doesn't matter. And very often the classification is not so clear and so hard cut, but it really helps to know how they are mapped in your head. It doesn't have to map with this, but you need to have a sense of, hey, I like math puzzles, I like Venn diagram puzzles, I like full data intensive puzzles. I like the things where there are 2 things that need to be mapped with constraint, but not 3. So some set of rules like this. I don't like the ones where the left-hand side scroll goes for a long thing. If there are 14 constraints, even if it's not a tricky puzzle, I start forgetting constraint number 2, 3, 4 by the time I go to 11. So I want fewer constraints that have a lot of meaning in them, which essentially means they go into a mathematical territory, which I love. So you should have your set of rules. This is a starting step to carve out those set of rules. Right? So, but in verbal and LRDI, it is tough to categorize. Keep that in mind. You should have a guideline set of rules, but you can't say, okay, this is what I'll do, this I won't do. Keep that in mind. When you're practicing, practice with variety. That's super crucial. Right? Now, for how we have classified this, there's some detailed tables which kind of say how many on each slot from each year that are there, which once again is going to be available on the web page given in the description. Go through that. I'm not going to go row by row, column by column. All the data that for which we have shared the overall pie chart, the greater detail one is available. So go through that. Right? So I'm just going to rush across this, gloss over this, not go through bit by bit, but you can find this data. Just scroll through the page, you'll be able to dig deeper. Right? Now, let's go to quant. Quant is where the takeaways are very stark, super stark. Right? In quant, if you take all questions, last 4 years, all slots put together, if you slot them as arithmetic and then everything else, arithmetic beats everything else. And arithmetic, I mean percentage in profit and loss, ratios and mixtures, speed, time and races, pipe systems, work and time, little bit of APGP. Sometimes it gets very algebraic, you can slot it elsewhere. Some parts of exponents and logarithm, they all come under this spot called arithmetic. Averages, some forming part of linear equations, they all come under this spot called arithmetic. You know those basic topics well, kind of topic that get covered in classes 6, 7, 8, 9. Then you can do more than half the paper. And if you get that right, then you're looking at 93rd, 94th percentile. Suppose you say, look, I'm not a genius in math, but I need to keep my head above water. Do arithmetic, have it in the bag, pick and choose those, you can nail this paper. If you chase arithmetic, have it in the bag, become super comfortable with arithmetic topic, you get to have a sense of intuition and speed, then you can nail this paper. Remember, if you know half the paper, you're not getting 50th percentile, you're getting 93rd percentile. If somebody is saying 26 or 28 questions in quant, I'm going to attempt 14 or 15, I'll get all of them right, that is 93rd percentile. And so, or better. So have this in the bag before you go anywhere else. And that is super important. Right? Now, let's look at where else, what are the other things, where do they come in? Geometry and allied topics, geometry, trigonometry, mensuration, coordinate geometry, that's the next big chunk. Algebra and modern math, which is number system, permutation, probability, set theory, that is one chunk. These three are almost equal, geometry being slightly bigger. My preferred order, arithmetic in the bag, then geometry, then go towards algebra or number systems. But you need to know the basics of algebra and number systems. You don't know what is LCM, then you can't even add and subtract fractions. If you don't know how to frame simple equations with x and y, then you can't solve several questions here. So you need to have a certain comfort level across topic. But if topics like inequalities, functions, polynomials, cubic equations, they don't work for you, you can dump that. If hardcore number systems or permutation probability, the idea of probability simply doesn't appeal, and you feel like I always get confused with repetition and order and all that, you can dump that. Geometry, I don't want to dump because geometry sets up trigonometry, mensuration, coordinate geometry. So this part is crucial. So if you're super hard pressed for time, do only this. If you can go one step further, do this and do this. If you have them in the bag, you're looking at 98 percentile plus. And then this really is a cherry on top of the cake. And if you've taken CAT a couple of times, you know the game and you're saying, look, if it's an easy paper, I need to nail it. Quant is my strong section and I don't want to leave anything to chance. Anything like that, then you're doing everything. That part is obvious. If you have to prioritize, know your order. Keep that in mind. Right? Lovely. So we've done all this. Again, once again, the data by year, that more detailed part is available. So go through that. Right? Finally, we've done this part. All of us are saying, hey, all this is good. We've known the pattern. We know what the exam is likely to be, how many questions are going to come possibly from each subheading. What do I need to score for a target percentile? And so the 3R mock thing, it's to get 99.5, should have got in the ballpark of 170 plus. Right? Again, this is across different years. This is a ballpark number, not across different years, across different slots, without worrying about normalization and the rest. So it's a ballpark number. Anyway, we are talking about to give slightly better than a random number. And so there's no sanctity to 171. You can't come back and ask me, look, I got 172, but I got only 99.46. Your numbers are wrong. Keep that in mind. This is the ballpark is likely to be in. And so 99 will be about 158. 95th percentile in the ballpark of 120. 90th percentile, give or take 100 marks. 80th percentile, 75 marks. That's the overall number we are looking for. Again, you can dig deeper into each of these. See, I'm not going to spend so much time on this. I'm going to spend more time the 2R format, which is what we have, which is what we had last year. Right? So 112 marks overall should put you in the mix for 99.5. 99.5 is actually the crucial cutoff beyond which A, B, C, L start becoming relevant. Sometimes it is 99.65, 99.7 to get A, B, C calls. Even 99.5 may not be enough. But if 99.5 is 112, 99.7 add another 10, 12 marks. You should be in the ballpark. If you're saying, look, I want to get A, B, C calls and I'm a general candidate, you're really looking at 120 marks in a 2R paper. Right? The bigger scoring section is definitely not LRDI. It is between these two, verbal and quant. In verbal, the attempts are likely to be higher. So get the habit, especially if you're shooting high, should get into the habit of shooting for good level of accuracy in verbal from day one. You cannot be happy with 70% accuracy or 80% accuracy or 65% accuracy. That simply doesn't work. Forget the theta part. The theta, you can take any number of punts. But the multiple choice question, you've got to say, I'm not taking chances. In verbal, the score can swing about because of your error rate and doesn't swing about because of your attempt rate. I've known guys who get 99.5 and 90th percentile. The number of attempts is 2-3 apart. Everybody attempts a lot of questions in verbal. Therefore, from day one, you should say, look, I'm going to be careful about which questions I'm leaving, which ones I'm likely to get wrong, which are the ones that I shouldn't poke at, which passages simply don't work for me. And be careful about resolving that final 1 in 2s. It is super crucial here. LRDI is the toughest section. So the key thing in LRDI is not going to be about knowing what your strength is. It's going to be about how you give up on a set if it doesn't work for you. And most importantly, how you will make sure that it doesn't affect your next set. You can pay everybody, even the toppers, they end up messing up one set. I've spoken to them and they'll tell you that, oh, I could have got this about 6-7 minutes I wasted on that, I should have dumped it. And then you realize, look, this guy is talking like that after nailing this section. Everybody makes that one mistake. But the super difference between the guy who get 99.5 and 90th is, they take a conscious effort to make sure that there's no overhang. And that is super crucial, especially in LRDI. Puzzle selection is a crucial skill set, but it is still a punt. I have seen puzzles that are delicious. Look at them and say, look, I'm getting this right up my alley. And I've dumped them after 8 minutes because it was not right up my alley. I just thought it was right up my alley. That can happen and frequently happen. That is all right. But then agonizing over it and said, Venn diagram kha tha, usko to maine chhod diya, kitna mera strong territory pe hai, and then keep on thinking about it, that can kill your score. So if you're leaving something, then just throw it away and not have a carryover from that. Quant, for several people, quant is a high scoring section. In quant, you need good accuracy. That's a no-brainer. But you also need tons of practice so that several things get automated. In quant, you cannot afford to be figuring out idea after idea after idea in the exam. That's where the practice comes in. Quant is a third section, so fatigue comes in. Right? Bunch of things to keep in mind from 3-hour to 2-hour exam. The fatigue is almost as high. I thought I'm so used to a 3-hour exam, 2 hours should be far simpler. It is not. It is draining because the intensity is amped up. It's super amped up. So I'm continuously counting down from 40, then counting down from 60. And so I'm used to saying an hour for a section, and therefore I manage my section. Now, one slip and I'm dead. So the pressure of acting in a compressed setting is super tough. And to give you a parallel, if you watch IPL matches, you'll see that by the time the guy is batting, he comes in over number 3, over number 12, he's struggling to run 2s and 3s. You're thinking, look, there are dudes who play 90 overs of test match cricket, aram se. They play the whole day, and that's intense. This guy is getting tired in 8 overs. Fast bowler will lose his speed by the time it's the 4th over. Why that happened? Because of the context, where every delivery is crucial, every run is crucial, every ball you are intent, every time you are running. So the fact that you're working in a compressed time frame makes it a big struggle. Keep that in mind. Just to compare this score-wise, both of these, the 3-hour one and the 2-hour one, if you look at these numbers, several corresponding numbers here, slightly less than 2/3, which is basically saying you might find easy questions, but it is tougher to operate in a 40-minute framework, in a compressed time frame framework. Fine. So practice-wise, if you have done quite a few mocks with 3 hours, don't worry, it will still hold you in good stead. From now on, when you know it's 2 hours, shift to this. It's a tough exam. It's a highly competitive exam, but it's something that you can still enjoy. Keep sure you keep your fun element with you. Make sure that you have a certain sense of joy when you're taking mocks and the real deal. Eat well, sleep well, drink lots of water, have a certain enthusiasm before every mock. That makes a huge difference. Once again, big caveats. All of this is based on the last 4 years' data. As ever, we'll share the data. As ever, you can check out all the data and make conclusions on your own. And what we are trying to do is provide a framework for, hey, what should you be shooting for? What are the last 4 years mocks telling us? What are the level of difficulty or pattern or topic-wise breakup likely to be? And we could very easily get a paper where half the questions are from geometry. It is possible. There's nothing that they have told us saying this won't happen at all. And having said that, having an overall picture helps. And then you can make adjustments thereon. And so prepare well. Best wishes. Cheers.